Use flat nose pliers to make a U-shaped bend in a piece of 20 gauge sheet. Drill a 0.8 millimeter hole through both ends of the U-shape. Trim and refine the shape, and test the fit of your 20 gauge wire. This is the hinge portion of the pin back. Use spring steel wire for the pin stem. I chose 0.032 inch diameter spring steel. And use round nose pliers to make a slight bend in one end. Choose heavy wall sterling silver tubing. You'll attach the spring steel pin stem to this tubing. Spring steel is too hard to use with your jewelry snips, so determine approximately how long you want the length to be and use a diamond wheel to carve a groove in the pin stem wire and then break it apart with your hands. Create a groove near the end of the piece of tubing using a triangular file. This will give the pin stem wire a place to rest while you solder it. Use a jeweler's saw to trim the tubing. Leave yourself a little extra. You'll refine it later. I forgot to hit record when soldering the pin stem to this tube, but this is the standard handy flux that you probably have for soldering silver. It is designed for brazing stainless steel as well. I used hard solder and pickled it as usual. It does have some scale on the pin stem, so I use a steel wire brush to clean that up, followed by abrasive paper to remove any discoloration. Use sanding discs or a file to adjust the length of the tubing so that it fits in the U-shaped hinge mechanism we made earlier. Use the diamond wheel if you need to make any adjustments to the pin stem wire. When making the hinge pen, you want to make a lot of test fittings before the final assembly. For this hinge mechanism, you want the long end of the pin stem to rest on top of the U-shaped bend. This gives the hinge pin spring and allows the brooch to function properly. For the catch end, use a drill bit the same size as 18 gauge round wire. Drill a hole halfway through the thickness of the stamping near the opposite end of where you'll place the hinge. When you prepare for soldering, make sure that the U-shaped hinge portion is facing toward the center of the brooch. Apply flux. Use the torch to evaporate the water in the flux. Use hard solder to attach the hinge portion to the stamping, heating it evenly until the solder flows. Use the same hard solder to attach the 18 gauge wire to the opposite end of the brooch. Pickle and clean the piece. On the inside edge of the U-shaped hinge, use a round nose file to create a slight groove for the pin stem. To make the catch, grab the end of the 18 gauge wire with a pair of vice grips or pliers and twist it a few times to work harden it. Trim the wire to about a 1/2 inch and then use a sanding disc to refine the end. Use round nose pliers to form a hook at the end of the 18 gauge wire. You can make modifications until you get the shape of the clasp the way that you would like it to look. And now's a good time to do any cleanup that you need to the hinge or the catch. Do another test fitting and make sure that when the pin is not in the catch, it rests slightly above the catch. This allows you to have some spring and to help gravity secure the pin in place so that it doesn't come unlatched. Draw a bead on each end of the hinge pin. You can also rivet this if you would prefer. The next thing you need to do is trim the pin stem so that it extends beyond the catch, but not beyond the end of the brooch. Use the diamond wheel to cut a groove, then break it off with your fingers, and use that same diamond wheel to refine the end of the pin stem into a smooth bullet shape. Then use abrasive papers and wheels to smooth the surface and give it a high shine. And here is the finished bar pin. You can do this with any design that you would like to make into a pin. Just make sure that if you're using larger stampings or you're making a larger brooch, you want to make sure that the pin stem is located in the upper third of the design so that it doesn't tip forward when being worn. Experiment with different materials, different sizes, different orientations, and have fun making pin stems. Thanks for watching.